Alright, so in this video we're going to look at a few different ways to use and make definitions for not just your thesis, but for any kind of time when you need to communicate to your audience, here's how I'm using this word, and here's how I want us to all understand this concept. Okay, so the first kind of definition, this is what you're going to be practicing in your assignment here in the next couple of days. Right? So this first kind of definition, going back to what we've just been talking about, species, genus, relationships, is basically that is what you create. You create a genus, and you create and you look at particular species or particulars of that class. Okay, so how you do that is first step here. They're numbered right here on this slide. You determine, all right, what is pick the word that you're defining. Whatever it is in your thesis. As you start to finish up and finalize what your actual thesis topic is and what your perspective is, there are probably some key ideas that you're going to need to explicitly define for your audience and say, this is what I mean by this idea. And so one way to do that is pick that word, whatever the term is, whether it's technical or jargon or just vague enough that you want to use it in some sort of defined specific way. Just write these steps out for your assignment. Number your paper 1, 2, 3. The first one is, what is that word that you're going to define? For our example here on the slide is hammer. So number 1, you write hammer. All right. Second, what class does hammer belong to? You might think, all right, probably a good easy class that hammer belongs to would be, that's right, tool. All right, and that would be number 2. That's the class or the genus to which that species hammer belongs to. Right. Then the key thing, the really the important, the exciting thing about this style of definition is this third and most important step. Determine and list all the differences between it, the hammer, and other members of that class, other tools. That is what makes this species genus definition interesting or worthwhile, is how you differentiate that member, that species, with all the other members of the class. So what makes a hammer different from other kinds of tools? And so then you talk about its shape, its form, its function, what is it used for, where the special aspects of the hammer that show this particular tool is different from other kinds of tools, and that's what makes a species genus definition. Okay, helpful especially for when you're defining terms that are members of a big noticeable group, or something technical or scientific, or like you said, technological, digital in the computer age. What makes this particular kind of member of this tool different from other, like you said, other members of this class. Okay, whatever it might be. So that is species genus definition. So 1, 2, 3 step process, fairly easy. Right? And so the as some guidelines for class, remember, limit the scope. That's what the point of it is. You want to make it, useful and significant and worthwhile, not overly broad. You're of a class of, hammer, a class of things I own, or things that are in the garage, then the parameters for that class are so broad, it's going to take too long, or it won't be helpful to come up with, a list of the aspects of that particular species, the hammer, to differentiate it from snow shovels and gasoline cans and car, or other things that are in your garage, if the class was things in my garage. So you want your class to be specific and narrow enough, but not too narrow, of course. You don't want it to be just long handled things that you use to hit nails with. That's not a good class for a hammer. Things like that. So fairly self-explanatory, but just avoid metaphors, avoid being too broad in your class when you're defining things that way. Okay, so that is the species genus definition. Second kind of definition here is the enumerative definition, which basically just sort of what you're going to be doing with your partition. You're just enumerating the things that are in it, the things that make up. As your partition is enumerating, here are my confirmation arguments, here are my refutation counter arguments that I'm going to refute. That is basically what you're going to be doing with your partition in your thesis itself. But there are other ways and other times when you might use an enumerative definition. Basically, it is just defining something by listing its attributes, right? So define the body. One way you could define it, classic children's song: head, shoulders, knees, and toes. These are the physical things that make up the body. These are the attributes or components of the body, right? And the mind, you could use it. Say the mind has these attributes. There's reason, will, intellect, imagination, passions, maybe some others, but that is sort of a basic rundown of the components, the attributes of the mind, right? Now, from a biological, medical perspective, if you're talking to a neurologist, perhaps, deals with the physical aspect of the brain, his or her definition of brain would certainly be more physical, with the lobes and medulla oblongata and all the sort of physical components of what the brain is. But for the mind, being a non-physical thing, as you've been talking about, I'm sure in Bible class, I'd say these are the attributes of the mind, right? The point of an enumerative definition is that as aspects or qualities, that you can understand this idea, this concept, if you understand its parts, right? And you see that in groups of people all the time. Like if you understand, the dad, the mom, the kids as individuals, then you have a good grasp of that family, right? And so that would be sort of the whole part relationships a little bit, but that is enumerative definition. You can understand the concept if you understand its parts and its qualities and its attributes, right? You understand, a baseball player from his fielding ability, his slugging percentage, all those statistical aspects of how he performs on the field. Then you can understand him as a baseball player if you know the different attributes that he has while doing his job in different ways. Okay? That would be sort of enumerative definition of how you define, like, for example, like a baseball player, look at the stats of offense, defense, and things like that. Okay, so the list has to be long enough to suggest how you then use it and understand that word, right? You wouldn't want to use like define this board game and say, well, it has rules and a board and stuff like that. That could be describing just about any board game, right? So you need a long enough list of attributes or qualities to make it helpful. You wouldn't say one word and then etc. because one definition or one attribute, you need more to say, etc. You're going to need at least, probably 3 or 4, different qualities to talk about when you want to define a term based on its attributes in the enumerative definition. All right, so enumerative definition, just looking at its list of its qualities or characteristics. Okay, similar is kind of the analytic definition, which is again fairly similar to enumerative, where we're talking about its qualities, but analytic is talking about the subcategories. What are the particular, all the attributes or all the components that make up this broader, bigger idea, right? And that is called the analytic definition, right? So, one way to talk about, say, defining your schedule from an analytic definition, you would list all the classes that you take and that would be your analytic definition. These are the component parts of the thing called my schedule. And a enumerative definition would be maybe the kinds of things that you do in your schedule, like while you're in classes, you do listen to lectures and take notes and homework and projects and things like that. That would be more an enumerative definition of your day, right? Or say that might be even like a day in your life. An enumerative definition would be the kinds of activities that you do. Go to class, listen, lecture, talk about your homework, things like that. Take tests, go to lunch. Whereas an analytic definition would be, the classes that you go to. That'd be one way to differentiate. Enumerative, qualities, attributes, experiences. Analytic is just the categories that make up. Like this example of rhetoric. An analytic definition of, there are 3 kinds of rhetoric, deliberative, forensic, and epidictic. Those are an analytic definition of what rhetoric is. It's that art of oratory that has 3 kinds, and that is your 3 categories. And use all of them, say all of them, and that makes your analytic definition. Okay, so analytic definition, you wouldn't, it's fairly more rare to use an analytic definition. Enumerative and species, genus are probably more frequent kinds of definitions that you'll use. But it's still good, I think, to practice this. And these are like I said, these are the 3 kinds that you'll be doing here for your assignment in just a minute. Okay, so one more short video to wrap up this. We got one more kind of definition, but here, looking back at this video especially will be helpful for how you're going to do this homework assignment or in-class assignment with you and your buddies on Thursday. And so one other video to watch there about other kinds of ideas about sophistic topics and arrangement, and then you can practice these definitions and then move on to style pretty soon. So much shorter unit here with arrangement than invention, that's for sure. All right, so we'll see you one more video and then wrap up arrangement already.